Average speeds at the Tour de France and Tour de France Femmes are staggeringly high these days, and whilst we'd sure love to be able to keep up with them, we're not so sure about the brutal training program that the pros follow. Fear not, because we've looked into the latest Tour de France tech to see how you could modify your own bike to make yourself faster. I'll start off with the most effective and often cheapest Go Faster upgrade. But before that, don't forget to subscribe to BikeRadar for your dose of the latest cycling tech, news and advice. While you might be tempted to buy the fastest bike on the market, we've proved with our recent trip to a wind tunnel that your body position has the biggest impact on drag. Therefore, if you can get your head and upper body lower and narrower, you'll go a bit faster for the same amount of effort, which is quite nice. To find out how I saved more than 70 watts, check out the video after this one. The link will be in the description. The pros use long and low positions to tuck themselves down on the bike and will often use some pretty extreme components to achieve this position. Simon Clark was the best example of this. His black ink one-piece bar used a whopping 150mm long stem, while the bar measured just 36 centimeters wide. The stems are often also slammed, with some riders, like this year's Paris-Roubaix Femmes winner Alison Jackson, using an incredibly low profile spacer above the upper headset bearing to eke out every last millimeter of handlebar drop. To help them put out the power with these extra low front ends, some riders, such as Sarah Tizzet's Sandra Alonso, have to slam their saddles forward on the rails to reduce cramping at the hips. Other riders resort to using inline seat posts, though with the UCI controlling saddle setback rules, they can only go so far. That has led to the short-nosed saddle becoming increasingly popular with riders that like to get low at the front end. So if you want to mimic the pros, you just need a super long stem, an incredibly narrow bar, and a suitably stubby saddle that is just rammed all the way forward. Just be careful though, the elite athletes have adapted to ride in these extreme positions through hundreds and hundreds of hours of training. And if you suddenly copy them without specific training, you could cause an injury, and that wouldn't help you to go any faster, would it? You can be as aero as you want, but nothing will make you go faster than some good old-fashioned pedal smashing. The pros use some huge chainrings to help them keep up with the strung out bunch, but what you fit up front depends on what you have out back. Shimano users generally hold the bragging rights as they will have the biggest chainrings. We commonly see pro riders using 54-tooth big rings these days, and some riders will fit even larger chainrings if they think that the day stage will be extra fast. But SRAM riders may actually have a larger top gear. Elisa Balsamo of Lidl Trek, for example, uses a 52-39 combination paired with a 10-33 tooth cassette at the back. It is SRAM's 10-tooth cog that gives her the bigger gear ratio, despite the smaller chainring size. As well as offering monster gear ratios, bigger chainrings are also slightly more efficient than smaller ones, meaning less of your precious watts are lost to drivetrain friction. Of course, if you end up being overgeared on the climbs, then it might not work out for you. But if you think your legs and your knees can handle it, you could always fit a set of bigger chainrings to go faster, or just push harder on the pedals like they did in the old days. The 2023 Tour de France and Tour de France Femmes has seen the use of tubeless tyres increase once again. This year, they seem to be getting wider than ever before too. Plenty of riders, such as Cecile Uttrup Ludwig of FDJ Suez, used 28mm tyres for most road stages. But the standout rider was Tadej Pogačar, whose 28mm Continental GP 5000 TT TR tyres ballooned out to 31.3mm wide at the front and 32.2mm wide at the rear. The cavernous 25mm internal width of his Envy hookless rims certainly helps to create the wide profile here, but not everyone went wide. Jonas Vingegaard went on a weight-saving mission, fitting 24mm tubular tyres to his Cervélo S5 for the hilly opening stages in Bilbao. This move surprised us a little, but then he did switch to wider tubeless tyres later in the race. The DSM ladies, meanwhile, used 26mm Vittoria Corsa Pro tubeless tyres. The Liv cycling riders used 25mm Corsa G2.0 tyres, and Arkea's Daniele Di Francesco fitted a set of the Pro Peloton's old favourite, the 25mm Continental Competition Pro Limited tubular tyre. The choice here is an incredibly complicated one to make. Now, each team is optimising their tyre choice based on the wheels and tyres they have available from their sponsors. The reason that most riders are turning towards wider tyres is due to a combination of rolling resistance, comfort and grip. Now, our very own Simon Bromley tested the difference between narrow and wide road tyres and concluded that majority of us in the real world would be best served by a 28mm tyre. So what size should you use? Well, the pros at the Tour de France get to ride on mostly excellent surfaces, whereas our local roads are often very rough. It would also be good to look for a racing tyre, as these will have the lightest casings, the thinnest treads, and therefore carry lower rolling resistance figures. I'd say personally that wider tyres make a lot of sense for you and I, as they're comfortable and they provide loads of grip. And hey, if the pros are racing on them, they must be pretty fast too. This might seem a little counterintuitive, but better brakes help you to ride faster. I know, it sounds stupid, but it's true. Braking later and harder before a corner allows you to get from point to point in a faster time. That's why F1 cars have some of the strongest brakes going. Now, disc brakes offer more power and, crucially, much better modulation of that power than a rim brake, allowing you to stop with more control, especially in adverse conditions or if you're using carbon wheels. While the pros have been on discs for a few years now, more seem to be moving towards larger rotors, and it is this that we can apply to our own bikes. Those larger rotors offer a bit more power, and I find them to be a little less susceptible to warping under heavy braking. So if you're still using 140mm rotors, it could be worth upgrading to 160mm rotors when your current ones wear out. If you can't go bigger, we'd recommend giving your brake pads and rotors a thorough clean with specific disc brake cleaner to sharpen them up. If you wanted to go even further, rebleeding your disc brakes could help to increase power and modulation too. The best thing about having better brakes for me is that it can help you to develop more confidence in your descending abilities. Who knows, maybe one day you might even be giving Pigcock a run for his money. Well, maybe not. Take a look at a pro bike and hopefully you'll notice how shiny it is. If you look even closer, the drivetrain is exceptionally clean, with the mechanics making sure that the bikes are spotless for every day of racing. But aside from looking nice, there is a very good reason for all of that cleaning. A clean bike is a faster bike. If you have a drivetrain, wheel set and bottom bracket that are free from everything but the essential lubricating oil or wax, you'll have increased the efficiency of your bike versus leaving it to get all dirty. The lubricant that you use is also important. There are far too many options to go through here, and while some might seem expensive, we'd recommend buying a high quality option if you want to look after expensive components. Don't forget, increasing friction equals increased drivetrain wear. Clean is fast, but it's also cheaper. My personal favourite wax is Squirt, while Simon von Bromley likes to top up his home wax chains with Ceramic Speed UFO drip. If you're heading out for a very rainy ride and you're planning on using wet lube, then just make sure that you give the drivetrain a thorough clean afterwards, as wet lubes can attract a lot of dirt. So, make sure you do a simple clean of your bike before a race or big event. It'll make you look pro and might just make you faster too. Which of these pro bike features do you already use, and which are you thinking about adopting? Let us know down in the comments below, and make sure that you check out this video.